Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. Authorities in Alachua County, Florida say that a 47-year-old man is facing a number of charges this week after he allegedly stole a piece of heavy machinery and took it on a destructive rampage through a local shopping center. According to reports, the real-life game of Grand Theft Auto unfolded on the night of September 11th when 47-year-old Jesse Charles Smith allegedly hot-wired an excavator somewhere in southwestern Gainesville. Police say that Smith drove the piece of construction equipment through a storage unit before heading out onto local roads where he began taking out power poles. The rampage finally came to an end after Smith arrived at the Butler Plaza shopping center where he plowed the excavator through one of the walls of a Walmart supercenter. Witnesses allegedly saw the 47-year-old hop out of the excavator and run inside the store armed with a machete, though it appears he ditched this by the time he was arrested by police minutes later. Smith is now facing numerous charges, among them grand theft, felony damage to property, and resisting an officer without violence. His bail was set at $160,000, though a judge has since ordered that he be sent for a mental health evaluation before he can be released. Apparently, Smith has a history of theft and burglary convictions in Alachua County dating back at least 5 years, several of which involve the theft of power tools and equipment. Authorities in Atlantic County, New Jersey say that a man has been charged and is also looking at a hefty fine this week following a series of bizarre incidents in which he allegedly used a drone to drop fluorescent green dye into local pools. According to reports, police were first alerted to the situation on August 13th when they were called by a concerned homeowner in the city of Absecon. The homeowner said that they had seen a drone hovering over their property, one which appeared to drop something into their swimming pool. When they went outside to investigate, the pool had been turned an alarming shade of bright green. It turned out that the color change had come from sea dye, a substance normally used by the military as well as naval rescue services, which is designed to make the water's surface more visible to rescue pilots. Not long after receiving this first report, police began to receive similar complaints all over Atlantic County. A Quality Inn in Galloway Township had apparently gotten it particularly badly, with the manager there stating that the drone had hit her hotel's pool a number of times beginning as far back as June. The manager said that it had happened with such frequency that the pool had been unusable for much of the summer. She estimated that the situation had cost the hotel thousands of dollars between repeated drainings and refillings, extra maintenance, and lost business. While sea dye is meant to be safe for humans and the environment, it's still apparently not something you'd generally want to dump in your pool. Several of those affected say that the dye did lasting damage, particularly in cases where the pools had concrete bottoms. On September 1st, investigators were able to track the drone that was allegedly dropping the dye to a business called Comfort Solutions Heating and Cooling. It was there that they found and arrested the suspect, 45-year-old Patrick Spina. According to reports, Spina is now facing multiple charges of criminal mischief over the drone-related pool dyeing, though he has been released from custody ahead of court proceedings. The FAA has since stated that the 45-year-old is also looking at potential fines of more than $30,000 and the likely revocation of his drone certification. While no motive has yet been provided behind the bizarre string of crimes, police say they believe they were intended to be a prank. Authorities in Harris County, Texas, are calling a 26-year-old woman a hero this week after she paid the ultimate price while trying to save her friend from an abusive relationship. According to reports, the heartbreaking situation unfolded sometime on the morning of September 9th, when the victim, 26-year-old Shantavia Reddick, traveled to her friend's apartment complex on the 2300 block of East Mossy Oaks in the Houston suburb of Spring. At the time, her friend was apparently in the middle of a violent domestic situation, one which had escalated when she tried to leave her boyfriend, 28-year-old Dimitri Humphrey. While few details are currently available about the exact lead-up to the tragedy, it's alleged that things turned deadly when Shantavia stepped in and tried to protect her friend while she attempted to leave. That's when Humphrey reportedly pulled out a gun and shot Shantavia several times. Sadly, she was pronounced dead at the scene, along with her dog, who she had brought with her. By the time police arrived, Humphrey had fled. Shantavia's murder has not only come as a huge blow to her family and friends, but also to her colleagues and students. She was a beloved third-grade teacher at Smith Elementary School, and just last year had been recognized as Rookie Teacher of the Year by the local Spring Independent School Board. At the time of this recording, it appears that Humphrey remains on the run and has yet to be formally charged with Shantavia's murder. He has additional felony warrants out unrelated to the brutal killing, and was last seen driving a white Jeep Wrangler with Texas license plates reading TFN 4278. Anyone with information concerning Humphrey's whereabouts is encouraged to reach out to the Harris County Sheriff's Office or through Crime Stoppers of Houston at 731-222-TIPS. Authorities in Newport, Rhode Island say that half a dozen members of a wedding party were recently arrested and are facing charges this week after an incident at a local restaurant spiraled out of control and the group got into an all-out brawl with police. The whole thing started sometime in the early morning hours of September 10th when police were called to the Landing Restaurant, a dockside seafood bar located in the popular Bowen's Wharf area. Authorities were contacted by staff at the restaurant after an altercation with a man who was part of a wedding party who allegedly became violent after being asked to leave. According to the staff members, the incident began when the man, later identified as David Onick, was denied entry to the restaurant. It wasn't stated why this was the case, though it's possible it was due to his apparent level of intoxication. Upon being asked to leave, Onick reportedly refused. He then allegedly shoved one employee and tried to punch another before being restrained. When officers arrived at the scene, they attempted to speak with Onick, who was apparently uncooperative. As police attempted to put him under arrest, his wife, Rachel Onick, allegedly intervened, causing other officers to try and walk her away from the situation. Apparently, Rachel was also uncooperative, leading to her tripping and falling onto the cobblestone road. It was at this point that all hell broke loose. Evidently believing that Rachel had been pushed, members of the wedding party surrounded police, repeatedly ignoring orders to stand back. Multiple people were then witnessed getting into scuffles with officers, fights which quickly escalated. During this time, one wedding party member, later identified as Alexandra Flaherty, allegedly kicked an officer in the groin area, while another, identified as Robert Nash, hit an officer in the face while police were attempting to restrain Flaherty. Things reached a particularly dangerous climax when police say that one of the suspects attempted to grab an officer's gun. The officer responded by throwing a punch, one that reportedly missed the intended target and hit Rachel Onick in the jaw, who was knocked out and fell to the ground. Authorities say she later recovered and was treated for injuries to her jaw, head, and elbow. Unfortunately for Rachel, though, she, her husband, and 4 of their friends are now facing charges over the out-of-control brawl. All 6 of them have now been slapped with varying offenses, including assault of police officers and other officials, simple assault or battery, resisting arrest, obstructing office and the execution of duty, and disorderly conduct. Ironically, it appears that David Onick, the man who allegedly started the whole thing, is facing the least severe penalty, having been hit with a single disorderly conduct charge. Authorities in St. Paul, Minnesota say that a 19-year-old man is in custody and is facing charges this week after he allegedly carried out a truly chilling and brutal attack against his girlfriend while holding her captive in her university dorm room for several days. The unidentified victim's harrowing ordeal began sometime on September 7th when her boyfriend of 2 months, 19-year-old Keanu Labatt, came to visit her at her campus dorm at St. Catherine University. According to reports, the situation almost immediately descended into a hellish nightmare when Labatt flew into a rage over photos, text, and social media content he found on his girlfriend's phone. After taking the phone, Labatt allegedly proceeded to hold the victim hostage, beating and choking her close to the point of unconsciousness. He reportedly continued this campaign of terror by repeatedly sexually assaulting her, threatening to kill her and her family, and waterboarding her with a washcloth in her bathroom. The unimaginably cruel assault allegedly lasted for 4 days, until finally on September 10th, the victim was able to convince Labatt to let her get some food from the campus dining hall. While there, she approached school security officials, who immediately contacted police. Labatt was arrested a short time later. According to reports, the 19-year-old is now facing multiple charges, including 3 counts of first-degree criminal sexual contact, 1 count of domestic assault by strangulation, and 1 count of threats of violence. At the time of his arrest, Labatt was apparently already on probation for violating a restraining order issued on behalf of a 17-year-old girl who he had also been in a relationship with. At the time of this recording, he remains in custody. Authorities in Macomb County, Michigan say that a Canadian man is in serious trouble this week after he illegally crossed the border in fairly bizarre fashion and then allegedly tried to steal a gun from a local pawn shop. According to reports, the whole thing started recently when Ontario resident 24-year-old Jeremy James Wallace had his guns confiscated due to an unspecified firearms offense. Unable to legally purchase additional weapons, though apparently determined to skirt the ban, it was at this point that he came up with a plan. In the early morning hours of September 6th, Wallace allegedly put on a wetsuit and flippers and swam across the St. Clair River from the village of Sombra, Ontario, into Michigan. Once there, he traveled roughly 12 miles to the Metro Pawn and Gun store in the village of New Haven, where he posed as a customer. After having employees at the pawn shop bring him out a .22 caliber handgun to look at, Wallace apparently inquired about a second firearm. When the employee who was speaking with him went to get the weapon, Wallace allegedly grabbed the first gun off the counter along with 2 empty magazines and fled. Unfortunately for Wallace, he didn't make it very far before police arrived at the scene. They reportedly witnessed him running around the back of the pawn shop and into a wooded area where he was tracked down and arrested. Upon being taken into custody, Wallace reportedly shared the details of his scheme. He told them about the wetsuit, the flippers, and the flotation device he'd used to cross the river, and was also allegedly in possession of a pistol crossbow, some ammunition, and a hammer. He said he'd brought the additional tools in case the pawn shop was closed when he got there and he needed to break in. Authorities say that Wallace is now facing multiple charges, including improper entry by an alien, being an alien in possession of a firearm and ammunition, and possession of a stolen firearm. Representatives from California's Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office say that they are mourning the loss of one of their own this week, after a deputy was the victim of a terrifying and unprovoked attack while on patrol. According to reports, the incident began just before 6 p.m. on September 16th, when 30-year-old Los Angeles County Sheriff's Deputy Ryan Klinkenbrummer was behind the wheel of his marked patrol SUV in the city of Palmdale. He had just left the Palmdale station and had come to a stop at a red light at the intersection of Sierra Highway and Avenue Q, when suddenly another vehicle pulled up beside him. Within a matter of seconds, someone within this vehicle allegedly fired multiple shots at Klinkenbrummer before taking off. He was struck at least once in the back of the head. The 30-year-old was found unresponsive by members of the public a short time later, who called for help. Klinkenbrummer was rushed to Antelope Valley Medical Center, where sadly, he succumbed to his injuries. Following the shooting, investigators released surveillance footage of the vehicle allegedly used in the attack in the hopes that members of the public might be able to help identify him. In the video, the car can be seen pulling up alongside Klinkenbrummer's patrol vehicle for a moment and then speeding off, at which point the deputy's vehicle can be seen rolling forward slightly before coming to a stop. The suspect's car has been described as a dark gray Toyota Corolla made sometime between 2006 and 2012. While authorities say that they have since detained a person of interest in connection with the case, at the time of this recording, no additional information has been provided about this person. Likewise, no specific motive has been released, though police say that they believe the murder was targeted given the ambush style of the attack. Adding further tragedy to the situation, it has been reported that Klinkenbrummer got engaged to be married just 4 days before he was killed. The deputy had worked for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office for 8 years at the time of his death, and had also been a field training officer for nearly 2. Anyone with information about the case is encouraged to reach out to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office. After we wrapped up the recording of the original segment for this story, it was reported that the person of interest detained in Deputy Klinkenbrummer's murder has now been identified as a 29-year-old man named Kevin Cataneo Salazar. Salazar was arrested at his home on September 18th, allegedly surrendering after police deployed chemical agents there. The situation is still developing. Authorities in Gwinnett County, Georgia say that they have arrested and charged 6 people in connection with a truly chilling murder case this week, following the discovery of a woman's body under grisly circumstances in the trunk of a car. According to reports, the incident began just before 11 p.m. on September 12th, when police were called to a shopping plaza in the community of Duluth. It was here, in the parking lot outside of a popular Korean spa and sauna, that officers were led to the site of a disturbing discovery. In the trunk of a silver Jaguar was the body of a woman. She looked like she had been badly beaten and weighed just 70 pounds. Upon further investigation, authorities were led to 6 suspects, all of whom were said to be members of a fringe religious group called Soldiers of Christ. They were all arrested and are now facing charges of felony murder, false imprisonment, tampering with evidence, and concealing the death of another. While one of the suspects' identities has been withheld due to the fact that he's only 15, the others have been identified as 22-year-old John Hyun Lee, 26-year-old Jun Ho Lee, 25-year-old Hyun Ji Lee, 26-year-old Gawan Lee, and 26-year-old Eric Hyun. Disturbingly, police now allege that the suspects lured the victim from South Korea to the United States under the guise of joining their religious movement. However, when she arrived this past summer, they believe she was held captive, beaten, and starved instead. A property in the community of Lawrenceville has been searched in connection with the investigation and is now said to be the place where the victim was killed more than a week before she was found. According to police, surveillance video taken from the plaza where the discovery was made shows one of the suspects, Eric Hyun, dropping off the silver Jaguar in the parking lot early on September 12th. A short time later, he was allegedly picked up by a family member in a white Mercedes and taken to a hospital to be treated for unrelated injuries. Hours later, Hyun apparently asked the family member to grab something from his vehicle back at the parking lot, which is when the body was found. The family member was the one who called 911. At the time of this recording, authorities say that all of the suspects remain in custody. The name of the victim has not been released, as police say they have yet to successfully contact her family back in South Korea. The situation is still developing. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.